Leaders who were, quote, installed, it's not a particularly good history. And that is exactly what Donald Trump is now demanding happen. In the middle of the night, Donald Trump posting to his platform Truth Social, Truth Central, well, call it what you want, quote, massive numbers of, quote, and fully capitalized broken voting machines in Republican districts on election day. Capital letters everywhere. None of them make sense. Mechanics sent in to, quote, fix them made them worse. Kari had to be taken to a Democrat area, which was working perfectly to vote. Now, understand that none of that is true. Her opponent ran the election. This is yet another criminal voting operation. So obvious. Kari Lake should be installed governor of Arizona. This is almost as bad as the 2020 presidential election. Remember, it's almost as bad because nobody's the bigger victim than Trump, which the unselect committee refuses to touch because they know it was capital F fraudulent. Look at what is happening here. This went from summer 2020. Well, you know, there might be problems that Democrats take advantage of because of mail-in voting and early voting. No evidence of it, but it was a much smaller claim. To, I won and they stole it from me in November of 2020. Now to install the loser, make her the governor, even though she actually lost. If we win, it's a fair election. If we don't, bring out the pitchforks, demand a new election, say it's fraud, and blah, 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 blah. Now, one of the craziest things about this is that Kari Lake is still insisting that they're going to get this one back. Now, much like with all of these people, we don't know to what degree are they grifters, to what degree are they liars, to what degree are they victims. I am struggling to believe that Kari Lake has even a 1% belief that they are going to somehow get her to be the governor of Arizona. And yet, she just posted as a reply to Donald Trump's troth, quote, Arizonans have no faith and trust in our elections. And what's notable is she capitalizes faith, trust, and elections just like Trump does. Very weird. She goes on to say, our election officials are incompetent or worse. They have failed us. The fake news ignores our fake elections and expect us to just, quote, move on. We won't. America will not survive if we don't demand election reform now. Do we think for a second that Kari Lake really believes she is going to be appointed the governor of Arizona, installed as the governor of Arizona, declared the winner of the governor of Arizona race? I am really struggling to believe that. And what I think is actually going on here is that this is Kari Lake's continued addition to be Donald Trump's vice presidential running mate in 2024. Marjorie Taylor Greene has made it clear she wants to be Trump's running mate in 2024. And Kari Lake is making it clear as well. And as I've said before, not all of the people claiming that 2020 was stolen really believe it. Some of them say it because they realize that it is the thing you're supposed to say if you are showing your allegiance to Donald Trump's team. And I believe that that is part of what is going on here as well. If you believe that Kari Lake believes she is going to be the governor of Arizona, let me know in the comments, and make sure you're, of course, subscribed on YouTube in order to be able to comment at youtube.com/The David Pakman Show. We're continuing to very closely look at the December 6th Georgia runoff between incumbent Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock and challenging Republican candidate Herschel Walker. Now, we've already talked about how Herschel Walker has no business being senator from Georgia. I'm going to give you yet another example of that a little bit later on in the show. But one of the interesting questions has been, is Donald Trump going to show up to try to help Herschel Walker? Barack Obama is showing up to try to help Raphael Warnock. Obama. That we know, and he will be campaigning with him. But Donald Trump is apparently so toxic at this point in time that Republicans are trying to keep him as far away from Georgia and as far away from Herschel Walker as possible. New York Times reports Trump plans limited role in Georgia Senate runoff. The former president, who held two big rallies before the state's two runoff elections 2 years ago, both of which Democrats won, will steer clear of Georgia before next week's Senate election. And when you look at why, you very quickly understand it. Michael Bender writes for the New York Times, Donald Trump will not cross the Florida state line to campaign with Herschel Walker during the final week of the Georgia Senate runoff election after both camps decided the former president's appearance carried more political risks than rewards, campaign officials for the two Republicans said Monday. Do we believe that Trump was sitting there going, you know what, it's true. I've become such a ticking time bomb and a hothead and liability that it's probably best that I not go? Probably not. It's probably the people around Trump who got together with those running Walker's campaign and said, we're going to try to keep him away. Trump is planning a call with supporters and will continue sending online fundraising pleas for Walker. Now, those online fundraising pleas default to 90% of the money actually going to Trump. And here is sort of the key line of the article. The decision to keep Trump out of the spotlight was a response largely to the former president's political style and image, which can energize his core supporters, but also motivate Democratic voters and turn off significant segments of moderate Republicans. One other really interesting element of this, in Georgia, that political math has become a net deficit for Trump. That's a critical line. Who opened his 2024 presidential campaign 2 weeks ago? In 2020, he was the first Republican presidential candidate to lose the state in 28 years. Earlier this year, his hand-picked primary challengers, Governor Brian Kemp and Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, were both trounced. This is more interesting in terms of 2024. Now, I don't want to diminish the importance of getting that 51st Senate seat in Georgia. The data is looking pretty good for Raphael Warnock. We never count our chickens before they hatch. We never, you use whatever metaphor you want. That is an election we have to fight for. We're going to be covering it, including up to the live results on December 6th. But there's another component to this, which is what is Trump's path to victory in 2024? And what I mean by that is, if you start with the 2020 map and you say what was marginal here, you certainly look at Georgia. Now, the problem with that math is flipping Georgia alone from 2020 won't give Trump the presidency. So you need Georgia and something else, or you got to flip Pennsylvania. Georgia's increasingly looking bad for Trump. And part of that signal is exactly what's happening in Georgia right now. So when we think about can Trump win, and listen, I was one of the guys that a week before the 2016 election said, I think Hillary's got it in the bag, and I was wrong. So I am not going to fall for this again, particularly 2 years early, and say, oh, Trump has no path to victory in 2024. The difference is we've seen what a Trump map looks like. And Georgia is an important part of that map. Georgia's an important signal when we think about 2024. And Georgia's looking so bad for Trump that he's being kept away when it comes to Herschel Walker. That's why it's so critically important right now. Let me know what you see as Trump's map and path to victory there. And maybe we'll even we're not going to do maps between now and November of 2024, but maybe we'll do one sample map to sort of look at what it could be. Send me your thoughts.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
The Senate on Tuesday passed the Respect for Marriage Act, officially repealing the 1996 Defense of Marriage Act and codifying federal recognition of states' same-sex and interracial marriages. 12 Republicans joined every Senate Democrat in the 61-36 vote. The final bill included a bipartisan religious liberty amendment guaranteeing that nonprofit religious groups would not have to provide services or facilities for weddings they object to, and an amendment clarifying that the federal government would not have to recognize polygamous marriages. The House must now vote on the revised legislation before sending it to the president, who says he will sign it. The law also would not force states to issue same-sex marriage licenses, but would require them to recognize marriages performed where it is legal. Now on to the looming rail strike. After 4 of the 12 unions negotiating for 115,000 rail workers did not ratify the deal made a couple of months ago with Labor Secretary Marty Walsh, President Biden called for Congress to step in with a legislative fix to avert what he said would be a devastating blow to the supply chain and the economy. Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer vowed to act quickly after meeting with the White House and Republican leaders, while union officials said that forcing contracts without paid sick leave goes against workers' interests. Senator Bernie Sanders and a group of House progressives called for votes to add a paid sick leave provision. And late Tuesday, Pelosi announced that the House would hold 2 votes. The first would impose the contract without the sick leave. Then they'd hold a separate vote to add 7 days of paid sick leave to the agreement. On the Senate side, Bernie Sanders is picking up support from unexpected places, like Republican Senators Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz, and Marco Rubio. So despite some tentative Republican support, this paid sick leave amendment still faces an uphill battle in the Senate, where it will likely require 60 votes to pass. And that's just one element in what looks to be a jam-packed, month-long lame duck session. The top priority is avoiding a government shutdown. They could do it by passing short-term continuing resolutions for the next week to the end of the session until the Republicans take over in January, please no, or one that'll go through September of 2023. So there's that. But that's not all. Congress will also decide whether to pass the Electoral Count Reform Act, add additional funding for COVID and Ukraine, and the must-pass National Defense Authorization Act, which funds the Pentagon. Good luck to us all. Well, verdicts were announced Tuesday in the trial of 5 Oath Keepers members for their participation in the January 6th Capitol uprising. 2 of the 5 defendants, Oath Keepers founder Stuart Rhodes and a Florida lieutenant, Kelly Meggs, were both convicted on charges of seditious conspiracy, the most serious charge imposed on any of the Capitol insurrectionists so far, a charge that carries a potential 20-year maximum prison sentence. All 5 of the defendants were also convicted on counts of obstructing an official proceeding, a charge that also carries that same 20-year maximum prison term. Now, while we're on the subject of our justice system, over 60 progressive groups, including Planned Parenthood and Demand Justice, called on the Senate Judiciary Committee to investigate ethics lapses at the Supreme Court. This came after allegations that Justice Samuel Alito leaked the outcome of a 2014 decision to members of a conservative Christian group that had been waging a pressure campaign targeting the court's conservatives. That, in addition to new questions about the more recent leak of the decision that ultimately overturned Roe v. Wade. This is also a good time to mention that 7 Democratic senators urgently appealed to President Biden to grant clemency to Leonard Peltier. He's the ailing 78-year-old Native American rights activist who the U.S. government put in prison 46 years ago after a trial riddled with misconduct and racism. Peltier is considered by many America's longest-serving political prisoner. Things continue going downhill at Twitter. They've now stopped enforcing a policy aimed at curbing the spread of COVID misinformation. Seriously, another move to loosen moderation guidelines on the site. As of September, Twitter had suspended more than 11,200 accounts for spreading COVID misinformation. But in the first 2 weeks after Elon Musk's takeover, the 25 biggest accounts spreading health misinformation had an estimated 57% increase in likes and retweets from the previous 2 weeks. Just inconceivable. And finally, the U.S. men's soccer team beat Iran 1-0 on Tuesday to advance to the round of 16 in the FIFA World Cup in Qatar. After tying Wales and England, the U.S. had to win to avoid being eliminated, and that they did. The U.S. moves on to play Group A winner Netherlands in the knockout round on Saturday. whatever that means. And that's just a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com, and please click on that donate button.
Mary had a little man.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Stuart Rhodes, the leader of the Oath Keepers, Yale-trained attorney and former paratrooper, convicted of seditious conspiracy, plotting to block Congress from certifying Joe Biden's election. The jury buying the prosecutor's claim during the trial that when Rhodes made this video after the 2020 election, his plot was already underway.
We have men already stationed outside D.C. as a nuclear option in case they attempt to remove the president illegally. We will step in and stop it.
Rhodes now faces decades in prison, along with one of his top lieutenants, Kelly Meggs, who was also convicted of seditious conspiracy. Meggs is seen in this video part of that group of Oath Keepers marching in unison in tactical gear up the steps of the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. According to prosecutors, Rhodes and other Oath Keepers were planning for a violent attack if President Trump had given the word. Authorities showing images of this arsenal of weapons, including assault rifles, secretly stored at a Virginia hotel just outside of Washington as part of a so-called Oath Keeper Quick Reaction Force. The key evidence in the trial, a series of seized text messages. Rhodes writing on November 5th, only 2 days after the 2020 election, quote, "We aren't getting through this without a civil war." And then in December texting, "It will be a bloody and desperate fight. That can't be avoided." This is just so rare. It's been nearly 30 years since the Justice Department has convinced a jury to convict someone of seditious conspiracy. And in just a few weeks, we have another trial for seditious conspiracy involving leaders of the so-called Proud Boys, who prosecutors say sparked the violence on January 6th by first knocking down those barriers, inciting that mob.
So, question, where in the prison hierarchy does seditious conspiracy convicts land? Is it above or below child molesters? Is it above or below? I don't know. I don't. Because, it's a Civil War era charge that we haven't really had to use since the Civil War era. But now you had people that were literally threatening to start a civil war. So a Civil War era statute applied. That's the sickest part of the whole thing, is that a Civil War era charge applied to Stewie Rhodes. Elmer Stewart Rhodes and his lieutenant, Kelly Meggs, both found guilty of seditious conspiracy in connection with the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. And every article that you read is going to say a rarely used, because we haven't seen a civil war in these United States since the 1800s, since 1860. You know what I'm saying? So it's just unbelievable. So Jessica Watkins and Kenneth Harrelson and Thomas Caldwell, he's an old geezer, they were all on trial too. Now, the only one that doesn't have to go back, get remanded to the prison is Caldwell, because he's an old geezer. Apparently, he had a better lawyer, I don't know, who argued, hey, he uses a cane, he can't be in prison. Jessica Watkins, Kenneth Harrelson, though, they are currently in prison. These are the people that Marjorie Taylor Greene refers to as political prisoners. These are the people she's defending. These are the people she wants an investigation into why they were held pre-trial for trying to overthrow the United States government. These are the people she's sympathetic to. But all five of them, all of them were found guilty of obstruction of an official proceeding. And didn't we learn in this rarefied territory that we're in because of, psychos like this, didn't we learn that obstructing an official proceeding of Congress also carries a 20-year prison sentence? Yes, we did learn that. This is not going to look good on their record. I mean, how in the world do you apply for a job with seditious conspiracy on your record. Good luck with that. Good luck with that, Stuart. Good luck with that, Kelly Meggs. Good luck with that, Jessica. It's mind-blowing that it took this long, but it's just mind-blowing that this is actually going to be on their record. And Stuart Rhodes, just so you know, Stuart Rhodes, Elmer Fudd over there with his guns, Elmer will always be welcome at Magaloco for dinner. But, this is a guy with a Yale law degree, okay? He has a law degree from Yale, and apparently it was his own testimony that convicted him. He literally testified in his own defense and literally blew it on the stand, okay? And so Glenn Kirshner, who was watching this trial, obviously, Glenn Kirshner is a former federal prosecutor. He said, it was Stuart Rhodes' own big mouth that sunk him.
Criminal trials are not supposed to be political endeavors. The question for the jury exclusively is whether the evidence introduced at trial proves the charged offenses beyond a reasonable doubt. And I will say the prosecutors did a pretty good job at keeping politics out of the trial. Rarely did you hear a prosecutor even utter the name Donald Trump. But then the head of the Oath Keepers and the lead defendant, Elmer Stuart Rhodes, took the stand and blew it all up. Now, it's rare for defendants to take the stand in, large federal prosecutions. I've had some of my defendants take the stand, which, was always a happy time for me because I got to cross-examine them. But when Rhodes took the stand very early on in his lengthy testimony, he said, and I quote, "The election was unconstitutional," said the disbarred Yale lawyer. And he also helpfully added that he is a constitutional expert. I don't think he won any points with the jury. But once he did that, Willie, he really put the big lie on trial. So ultimately, I view the jury's verdict not only as an affirmation that the evidence proved the guilt of these 5 defendants beyond a reasonable doubt, but it was a pretty direct rejection of the big lie itself. In short, I think the verdicts were a victory of law, the rule of law, over lawlessness, and a victory of facts over, I guess, alternative facts.
So in the prison exercise yard, which section is devoted to seditious conspiracy prisoners? Because if there is one, it's going to be tiny. It's going to be very, very small. So I'm thinking maybe the Aryan Brotherhood will look out for Stuart Rhodes because he only has the one eye. He's not going to be able to see like the other side. He'll be peripherally blinded, right? Because he not only is he not only is he a disbarred, Yale-educated attorney, but do you know that he used to work for a conservative think tank and was a staffer for Ron Paul? Did you know that? Yeah. He worked for Ron Paul. So he's been groomed for this. Groomed, I say, for a lifetime. But I guess, he's going to have to find a prison group to hang with because, somebody's going to have to take the left side.
Well, he may be half blind, but as long as he's not colorblind, the Aryan Brotherhood, I'm sure, will be willing to welcome him in.
Well, he's not half blind. Well, I guess that's a way to put. He just, the guy is missing an eye because he's a gun nut, and he shot himself in the face. And he blew out his own eyeball. So that's why, he has the little patch. I know everybody thinks, oh, maybe he was a vet or something. No, he's a gun nut who blew out his own face, right? And his anti-government obsession has landed him in jail for many years with only the one good eye, which means he's going to have some people looking out for him, right? I just love to think of him in jail. I interviewed him years and years and years ago, I guess, around the Bundy Ranch crap. And, they got the message that what they were doing was cool, that what they were doing was okay. And what they were doing, was unprosecutable, that they could, be oath keepers and, never run afoul of the law. So, I mean, his obsession with being an oath keeper has landed him in prison for many, many, many years. Now, again, the sentencing won't occur for 3 months. You know that you could be the smartest person in the room, when I tell you that in criminal trials, okay, after the verdict comes in, sentencing happens 3 months later. So that's why we don't know how many years any of these 5 will get, but they are all facing up to 20 years.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
Happy holidays, everybody. You know what would make a freaking great gift? A stinking podcast. A stinking Randi Rhodes podcast. You can gift them now by just visiting us at RandiRhodes.com. Click on merch and buy a stinking podcast. Gift it. It's free of corporate information. There are no ads of any kind. It's pure podcast pleasure. Commercial free and on demand when you want it, where you want it, how you want it. So visit us at RandiRhodes.com and buy a stinking podcast.
Breaking news. After years of failed Republican efforts to uncover any proof of widespread voter fraud by Democrats, Republican Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida has found not 1 but 20 ineligible people casting ballots. Like Donald Trump and a gaggle of other GOP governors, DeSantis has used the phony bugaboo of an illegal voting epidemic as a political ploy to keep the true believers believing. They spend millions of taxpayer dollars on partisan wild goose chases, and DeSantis even created a new police bureaucracy, the Office of Election Crimes, to snoop on voters. It was all just silly political nastiness, but then, Ron's dragnet scooped up 20 of the diabolical culprits. Vindication. Who were they? All are former convicts who had previously been stripped of their right to vote, but each one unwittingly cast ballots in 2020, wrongly believing that their rights had been restored after serving their time. Who cares what they thought, bellowed the bullish governor. He trashed them as election criminals, ignoring their constitutional right to be presumed innocent unless convicted by a jury. Well, gosh, why did all 20 think they could vote? Because each one had properly submitted voter registration applications that went to DeSantis' state agency responsible for determining eligibility. But oops, Ron's own administration boo-booed, erroneously authorizing all 20 to get official voter ID cards. In short, the governor himself had effectively told them they could vote. Then he had them arrested and publicly condemned for doing so. This is Jim Hightower saying, now running for president, DeSantis says God has chosen him to rule because he's a fighter. But hello, he fights people rather than for them. He's a bully, and there's nothing godly about that. Nothing presidential either.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1930. That was the day the world lost the miner's angel, Mother Jones. She had crossed the country many times over, been involved in practically every strike that built the labor movement, stood with miners and steelworkers and mill children everywhere. Mother Jones had asked to be buried with the Verdun miners killed in the massacre of 1898 at Union Miners Cemetery in Mount Olive, Illinois. Dozens of labor leaders, including AFL President William Green, attended her funeral in Maryland, where she had been living. Then AFL representatives, several Illinois miners, and others boarded the Baltimore and Ohio train to accompany her body to Mount Olive. Historian David Featherling describes the scene as her body arrived. A band played Nearer My God to Thee as onlookers bowed their heads and wept. Survivors of the Verdun riot bore the casket to the Odd Fellows Hall, where it lay in state. The town of 3,500, with its strong and violent heritage, was thronged by thousands of coal diggers. At least 15,000 turned out for the funeral. Broadcast on WCFL, the Chicago Federation of Labor's radio station, the labor priest, Reverend John McGuire, gave the memorial address and officiated at the funeral in Mount Olive's Roman Catholic Church of the Ascension. He asked what weapons she had to fight the fight against oppression of working men. Only the great.
Don't give up. Don't give up. What's true?
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
There was no insurrection, and to call it an insurrection, in my opinion, is a bold-faced lie. Watching the TV footage of those who entered the Capitol and walked through Statuary Hall, showed people in an orderly fashion staying between the stanchions and ropes, taking videos and pictures. You know, if you didn't know the TV footage was a video from January the 6th, you would actually think it was a normal tourist visit.
Andy Clyde, everybody. Reelected, by the way, reelected. Just a beautiful thing, isn't it? Yeah. All of these people that lied through their teeth, that understood what was really happening, that knew about Elmer, that knew about Kelly Meggs, that knew about Jessica Watkins, that knew about the Proud Boys, that saw the same debate we saw where, I guess it was Chris Wallace who asked Donald Trump to denounce white supremacists, denounce white supremacy, denounce, the Proud Boys, denounce, and he said, who am I supposed to denounce? Who am I supposed to denounce, right? Now, we know he just had lunch or dinner or drinks or a Diet Coke or a burnt hamburger with Nick Fuentes, right? But back then, it was, the Proud Boys, and it was the Oath Keepers, and it was the 3%ers, and all these, literally, Charlottesville attendees, these crap talkers that were all over Alex Jones saying that they were going to be a quick reaction force, all over talking to Steve Bannon saying all hell's going to break loose tomorrow. All these people need to go to jail. But okay, so now we have Elmer going to jail and Kelly Meggs going to jail and Jessica Watkins going to jail and Caldwell will go to jail. And Kenna will go to jail. And 5 Proud Boys, I think, go on trial next month, right, for the same thing. And 4 more Oath Keepers still have to go on trial. So you got all these people going on trial for a seditious conspiracy, for obstruction of a congressional proceeding, an official proceeding, aiding and abetting, stopping police officers from doing their jobs and doing their duty, whatever. And they're all going to go to jail. Every one of them is going to go to jail. And they all knew this. The entire Republican caucus, whatever you want to call their carcasses, they all knew this. And they were on the TV lying to our faces, saying, if you didn't know, I was here. And if you didn't know the difference, you would think it was a normal tourist day. You would think, these were a bunch of tourists taking photos, standing between the stanchions, behaving themselves. But they all knew. You know why? Because Stewart Rhodes was telling everybody.
So what we're doing is we have men already stationed outside D.C. as a nuclear option in case they attempt to remove the president illegally. We will step in and stop it. And we're going to be there to also help secure the coming rally this Saturday and your caravan coming in. So I've got good men on the ground already. We've did a recon there last week, and we're sorting out where we're going to be staging, and we'll be there. We'll be inside D.C. We'll also be on the outside of D.C. armed, prepared to go in if the president calls us
Stuart,
up.
can you not feel history happening right now? It's happening right now.
It is, and we all need to realize that we're Americans. We're born in this country at this time for this purpose. We need to let go of the fear,
I don't have fear. I have a concern about what is the right thing to do. My God, there's so many options here.
Well, I know. I'm preaching to the choir on that, right? So you and I are like that. But there's so many Americans out there that they've been timid in the past and afraid. You got to let go of your fears. Look, just as Americans from across the country stormed up to Bundy Ranch to stand up for a rancher's family, you need to go to Washington, D.C. with the same conviction.
I was about to say, this is a commie Chi-Com takeover with an admitted Chinese agent. You better get your ass to D.C., folks, this Saturday.
Yeah, if you don't, there'll be no more republic. But we're not going to let that happen. It's not even an if. It's either President Trump is encouraged and bolstered, strengthened to do what he must do, or we wind up in a bloody fight. We all know that. The fight's coming.
Tough guy. He's, they're also butch. They're also tough, aren't they? And then they're going to cry and cry for mercy. They're going to throw themselves on the mercy of the court. Mercy, mercy. I only got the one eye because I'm obsessed with anti-government bullcrap and I shot myself in the face and I don't know where my hierarchy is in the prison and I'm scared now. I'm scared to go. I don't know what to do. The best I can hope for is the Aryan Brotherhood looks out for me because I can't see on the left side. I can't see what's coming. Some guy could come up with a shiv now, because I'm obsessed with anti-government garbage. I'm obsessed with guns. I'm obsessed. My advice to you, take up gardening. Cooking. Get obsessed with something else because this got you landed in prison probably for the next 20 years. And when you get out in 20 years, okay, it's going to say on your record, seditious conspiracy against the United States of America. I don't know who's going to hire you. except for Donald Trump. Maybe Donald Trump does hire disbarred lawyers. Maybe that's what he's, his next game is hiring disbarred lawyers who have nothing to lose. I don't know. But, prepare to get stiffed in prison. Ha ha. Oh, man. Couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of people. Really. I'm so, glad that the justice system still somehow can crank out justice. Somehow you could squeeze out just a little tiny, teeny bit, just a metered drop of justice for people that do crap like that there, while the Congress members lie to our faces and get reelected. Holy crap. That's really, that just blows my mind. And they're all reelected. They all, here's Ron Johnson, right?
I knew those are people that love this country, truly respect law enforcement. You better run, cops! Would never do anything to break a law.
The Capitol police officer tragically killed. Officer Sicknick is the 5th person to die.
I knew those were people that love this country. Had the tables been turned, those were tens of thousands of Black Lives Matter protesters, I might have been a little concerned.
Marcus Touch is responsible for the content of this advertising.
So reelected. Yeah, Ron Johnson is a senator in good stead. He will serve the great state of Wisconsin for another 6 long, disgusting, racist, white years. Oh, my God. I mean, they all just lie to your face. And America just says, okay, that's all right. I'm okay with it. All politicians lie. Gaslighting you. That is the word of the year, Merriam-Webster. Gaslighting everybody. But really, it's just, it's unbelievable. This guy has a Yale law degree. Could have been a big-time lawyer. Could have been a big-time Trump lawyer. Could have been, Trump's thuggy lawyer. Could have been that. Could have been, but I don't know. He probably would have gotten himself into equally as much legal trouble. BJ in Ohio.
For everything, turn.
There is a season.
This is the last.
Hey, you know what? If we're going to sing, then you're going to force me to say this, and I don't really want to.
The Great Red Scare.
Christine McVie passed away. I don't know what happened to him, but Christine McVie from Fleetwood Mac, she died. 79 years old. They said she was ill for a long time, but they didn't say what it was. I mean, her song Everywhere is now on car commercials. This is not a good time for her to check out. She's got all these residuals coming. That's all I could think of was that TV commercial that they turned, I want to be with you everywhere. Uh-huh. Yeah, it's a car commercial now. Poor Christine. Only 79. So young. I don't know what she had. I really honestly don't. But I will tell you this. Stevie Nicks is still touring, and I don't care if she's 80. I still go. Just for Landslide, but I still go.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
This is Stephanie Miller, and here's what you missed. Trump always makes things worse for Trump. He has basically, in writing now, admitted to this document crime, right? In an ongoing rant posted to Truth Social, he admitted he stole the documents from the White House, concealed them for a year, lied to the FBI. His lawyers lied in court documents, then demanded a special master, now a special master overseeing a likely prosecution. He said, when will you invade Bill and Hillary's home in search of the 33,000 emails?
Oh, God.
She deleted blah, blah, blah. When will you invade the other president's homes?
Wait. Time out. He wants them to raid Bill and Hillary's house to find emails that were deleted?
Yeah.
Right.
Because those are easy to find.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's sort of a contradiction in there somewhere that I'm going to have to puzzle out.
Right. But the two important words there are, I did. He basically said, yes, I stole them. So I don't, Charlie, I know I try not to get too happy-clappy, but Jack Smith seems on the job, working on Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah, I mean, is he back in the United States yet? Is the question. I don't even know. He was still in Holland when he got the job.
Right. Yeah, but I mean,
or the Netherlands, as we say in World Cup coverage.
Right, but it also seems like, subpoenaing Mike Pence, they're at the as people are saying, more at the end, right, Jody, than at the beginning of the investigations. Yes. Which would set it apart from Mueller, and Bill Barr's not in charge. Right.
Yeah, and you know, I've got to believe that the urgency of the deadline with the incoming Congress is going to be putting them, spurring them on to work very hard.
Right.
Because you don't know what's going to happen after January.
Right.
I mean, the January 6th committee obviously goes away, but, Marjorie Taylor Greene's talking about defunding the Justice Department.
Hear all this and more on the next Stephanie Miller Show.
Oh, it was an insurrection. So how many of the participants in that insurrection have been charged with insurrecting, with sedition, with treason? 0.
No one has been charged with sedition or insurrection. Most have been hit with charges like parading. Parading. Who knew that was a crime?
The Biden Justice Department still has not charged even a single person with treason, sedition, inciting an insurrection.
How many times do words like insurrection, sedition, or treason appear in Biden's own DOJ indictments against the January 6 rioters? The answer, 0.
As we reported, the most serious federal charges yet in the January 6th insurrection were unsealed today. The leader of the Oath Keepers, a right-wing paramilitary group, and 10 of his members were charged with seditious conspiracy, attempting to overthrow the United States government.
Whether you're listening to Leslie Marshall each Tuesday through Friday or Brad Bannon each Monday, you can hear them from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern on the Progressive Voices Network. Here's a sample of what you'll hear.
Sean O'Brien. Mr. O'Brien is now General President of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. What do you, now that you're General President of the Teamsters, what do you hope to accomplish?
Well, I hope to accomplish a bunch of different things. I mean, as you stated, we have goals and objectives that we are following. I mean, during the campaign, which Fred Zuckerman, my General Secretary Treasurer, and our entire executive board, we were campaigning for almost 3 years. And we were very successful because we were transparent and also inclusive, but very focused on what the platform of the union needs to be moving forward. Look, we're one of the biggest transportation unions in the world.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randy, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Happy holidays, everybody. It obviously is the winter holiday season. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, happy belated Thanksgiving to you, and thank you. That's what we're thankful for, you, because you are the reason for our pledge drive season. Yes, you are. This is the Winter Pledge Drive, and we are asking for you to support your independent TV station that you've come to trust and love, Free Speech TV. Okay, and obviously we are here to call out people who actually do engage in seditious conspiracies way ahead of time, while people are sitting there lying to your face about it being a normal tourist visit and then being shown to be right in the end. Okay, so this is our job. Our job is truth. Our job is facts. Our job is orienting you into a real world in which we really toil, live, and raise our children. And it's also getting people the information they need in order to have another generation of democracy-loving Americans on our hands, so that when we become 79, when we become 85, we can rely on the generation that we groomed, oh yes, groomed into democracy, into loving it, believing in it, supporting it, trusting it, and knowing that democracy is the best way to self-govern ever created. So if you want to contribute, today is a wonderful day, because during the Winter Pledge Drive, our frontline funders have shown up with bags full of money. and they will match everything, every cent, every dollar that you give, dollar for dollar. So if you could do $500, it would become $1,000. If you did $5, it would be $10. If you did $100, it would be $200, and so on and so forth. So please give us a call at 877-378-8669 and make your donation for independent media. And if you want to do it online, of course you can. freespeech.org. We're an org, not a com, because we're not for profit, right? So that's why we're an org. Freespeech.org. Or you could text 44321, dial 44321, and then put in the letters FSTV, and we'll be happy to send you a very secure link where you can make your donation that way. So thank you very much. Happy holidays to you and yours, from me and mine, and everybody here at Free Speech TV, who, I mean, I'm in Florida. They're in Denver, Colorado. So when you dial, that's where you'll be calling. You'll be calling Denver. Now, I just want to tell you that here's the difference, okay, if you were ever wondering. Like, what is the difference between independent media and media that goes to morning meetings and just says crap, right? Like this.
You know what? No one has been charged with sedition. No one's been charged with the left's favorite word, insurrection. Instead, people like Kelly and Connie Meggs walked into the Capitol, no vandalism, no violence, but instead were guilty of being members of the Oath Keepers. And they have been hit with felony conspiracy to obstruct official proceedings charges. They walked in while being a member of the wrong group.
That's all it was. They were just a member of a wrong group, and that the Democrats were redefining what justice is. The Democrats were, accusing them of doing violence. The Democrats were charging them with felonies when all they did wrong was be a member of a bad group. That's all they did. I mean, this is the difference between media that has morning meetings where Rupert Murdoch's marching orders are known and absorbed and digested and spewed forth, right? Or where stories don't get done at all because, hey, that big pharma might be an advertiser, so we're not going to talk about the price of insulin. That's not us. It's not who we are. It's not what we do. And that's why we're able to get things right. And sometimes it takes forever to see justice be done. I'm still waiting for Bannon. Listen, Bannon ripped off his own viewers. I mean, this is so amazing to me. He literally ripped off his own viewers with his We Build a Wall bull crap and pocketed $1 million that they gave him because they thought they were going to be building a wall that Donald Trump said in the first place Mexico was going to pay for. And then, didn't build anything, just repaired some. And then told people, okay, so we'll build it, give us money, and we'll build it for you. And he pocketed that money too, and he got pardoned. He got pardoned on the last day of the Trump presidency. Oh, God. And so he's not in jail. But, look, here's the thing. Where is Roger Stone's day in court? Now, he also took a pardon from Donald Trump. He also took a pardon because you know what his crime was? He was the go-between between the Russian hacked materials. Remember, Hillary Clinton was the victim in all of this, okay? Hillary Clinton was literally hacked by Russians. Her private email was hacked, and it was turned over to WikiLeaks, okay? And then Roger Stone coordinated the dump of the documents as the news would get difficult for Donald Trump. He would, gaslight you. He would say, no, don't look at Donald Trump. Don't look at the white supremacy. Don't look at Donald Trump calling Mexicans murderers. Don't look at Donald Trump saying, when you're a star, you can do whatever you like. You can grab him by the P word. No. Dump some more emails with great recipes for risotto. Do that. Dump that. And so he got convicted, and Donald Trump pardoned him. Well, actually, before trial. So, I mean, these people are disgusting. They are impediments to self-governance. They are the swamp. They are literally people who said that there was a swamp because they were it. They understood how much they could steal. Dave in North Carolina.
Hey, Randy, how you doing?
Fine. How are you?
Pretty good. I was just calling to say that I find your show very entertaining. I don't agree with you on everything, but gun safety, I have to agree with you.
Well, that's nice of you to say. Thank you.
Yeah, and there's a lot of corruption in the U.S. government. on both sides. That's my feeling.
Well, it just seems to me that whenever there's corruption on the left, they actually, see the bar of justice, but on the right, it's like, let's just lie about it. So.
Well.
I mean, come on. Do you really think Rudy Giuliani filed lawsuits in good faith? Do you really think that, Rudy Giuliani, when he was lying to us and saying, oh, I have evidence of this and I have evidence of that he had anything? Because he never presented one single shred of anything in court, and he's still walking around. Why is that?
Oh, I guarantee you. They're all from New York City.
So
they're
what?
From your neck of the woods.
Oh, so now it's a geographical defect? Okay. All right. So it's a geographical defect. Okay. All right.
No, I'm just saying that Trump had to work with the mafia before. Would you agree with that?
I don't know if he did or not, but, it seems like he probably, did something with concrete.
He might have.
I mean,
I love your show.
Well, thank you.
Great job. You're very entertaining.
Thanks.
And there's a girl that is really a big fan of yours. She's called politicalrats.com. Bitch.
Okay. Well, thank you. I don't know what he said, and I don't want to know what he said. And, you're going a very long way, trolls. Very long way to do stuff that makes us laugh.
New York City.
It's New York City. New York City's biggest hits. That's me. Yeah, it's a geographical defect, apparently. I don't know. Oh, my God.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
Donald Trump is back. Angry, vengeful, ready to take back the White House and wreck America again. And who's going to stop him? These weaklings and losers, business leaders, they'll bend the knee and write the checks. The press? Too many are just here for the show, ready to both sides America to death. The law? He'll ignore it, like he's always done. No, the only people who will stop Trump are Americans ready to put country over party, ready to put differences aside to save this country, ready to work, ready to fight, ready to stand up when he knocks America down. Because it's not about left and right. It's not about rich and poor, black or white. Like it's always been, the choice is simple. It's America or Trump.
Look, no person is above the law in this country. Nothing stops us.
Even a former president.
I don't know how to, maybe I'll say that again. No person is above the law in this country. I can't say it any more clearly than that.
Finished with our meetings here at the White House this afternoon. We had a great planning session for our January 6th objection. We aren't going to let this election be stolen.
Above the law and reelected.
On January 6th, did you speak with him before, during, or after the Capitol was attacked? I'd have to go.
Above the law and reelected.
President Trump he's a fighter. He, like so many of us, believe that this election was stolen, and he wants to fight through it. And we'll wait and see what happens on January 6th.
Above the law and reelected.
Certification of those ballots is covered up by the machine.
Above the law and reelected.
My conversations with the president are my conversations with the president.
Presumptive Speaker of the House.
A great woman named Ginny Thomas. She said that she still believes the 2020 election was stolen. She didn't wilt under pressure.
Above the law.
Investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government.
Above the law.
We will not go quietly into the night.
Above the law.
I waved to him, gave him the thumbs up, pumped my fist to him.
Above the law.
On January 6th, I was in charge of operations, plans, training, and strategy.
Above the law.
Today is the day American patriots start taking down names and kicking ass.
Above the law.
Is there any person here that actually thinks that Joe Biden won this election?
Above the law.
We're coming for you, and we're going to have a good time doing it.
Above the law.
I am senior advisor to President Donald J. Trump.
Above the law. Received $2 billion from the Saudis.
Jared Kushner secured a $2 billion investment from a fund led by the Saudi Crown Prince.
Now more than ever, America needs 4 more years of a warrior in the White House.
Above the law.
Every American understands what today's Democrat Party stands for with respect to babies and with respect to the murder of babies.
New Democratic hero.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
2024 presidential candidate.
No person is above the law in this country. I can't say it any more clearly than that.
Glad to have the MAGA-packed Supreme Court? Proud that they lied under oath to get the job? If so, thank a MAGA Republican. If you enjoy seeing our rights disappear one by one, thank a MAGA Republican today. The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
911, what's your emergency?
America's healthcare system is broken, and people are dying.
Welcome to Code WACK, where we shine a light on America's callous healthcare system, how it hurts us, and what we can do about it. I'm your host, Brenda Gazar. This time on Code WACK, how do the results of the midterm elections affect the prospect for state-based single-payer healthcare systems? Will state governments continue to subsidize the private insurance system and defend the status quo as we lose money and lives? To find out, we recently spoke to Michael Leidy, president of Healthy California Now.
Well, the question is, I think, for elected officials at all levels is, are they going to...
Don't give up, don't give up, what's
true? This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
And now your moment of Herschel.
My neck is too big to be wearing a tie. I'm not wearing a tie, and they know that. But this is what I'm running against. I'm running against this slick preacher that talks so smooth. Y'all saw what he was saying in that debate, trying to think he can out-talk Herschel Walker. Do y'all really believe this man can beat me in a debate? He had to have something going wrong with him. He don't know him from the school of Ricky Bobby. Yes, I am. I'm from that school of Ricky Bobby, and I'm always going to finish first because he's a one-trick pony. He thought he could say things and fool me.
What the hell?
How dare he bring one of my favorite comedies into this? Like, keep Ricky Bobby's name out of your mouth, Herschel.
I mean, I don't even understand. Look, he got like extra weeks here in the runoff to, fix whatever went wrong that made Republicans stay home and not vote for him, right? Or made Republicans vote for Kemp and then skip his race, or made Republicans vote for Kemp and vote for the Democrat Warnock to be their senator. He had a few weeks here to be spared, the final verdict. And, obviously he lost to Warnock, but, Georgia is one of those where if you don't get 50% of the vote, then it immediately goes to a runoff, right? And so it was like a reprieve. It was like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to fix this. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to make this better. I'm going to give people, assurances that they can vote for me, that I don't even want to say this is word salad because it's an insult to salad and it's an insult to words to say that that's word salad. I don't know what that is. I honestly do not know, but I will tell you this is crazy. He doesn't even live in Georgia and hasn't lived in Georgia for 20 years. Did you know that? He lied about that there stuff. I mean, he lies about everything. This is the problem with Republicans. This is why the party is just, imploding. And, you can't have a democracy without two parties. So for my friends out there that think that, I'm all about one party and, it's a takeover. No. I like democracy. I like the debate. I like the argument. I like fighting it out. Because in diversity, you get the best ideas. People, some of them stumble on a good idea. Others of them actually come with solutions to different problems. And some solutions are better and some solutions are easier and some solutions are costly. But, having a bunch of people flesh it out and try and solve some of our difficult problems is a good thing. It's a good thing. But this guy is such a world-class heavyweight liar, is what he is. So they found out that the house that he lives in, where he claims his homestead exemption, where it's a tax break, your primary residence in some states, Florida is one of them. So I know about homestead exemptions because I live here. But in Florida, in Texas, you get a homestead deduction where I don't know what it is in Texas, but here in Florida, I think it's the first $25,000 of the value of your house is, forgiven, right? And so you're only taxed on the remaining value after they take off the 25, right? And the same thing, I don't know if it's the same amount, but it's available in Texas. And this man has gotten the homestead exemption on his house because, everybody knows he played football for the Cowboys. And so, of course, he lives in Texas, and he always has lived in Texas. He's lived in Texas for the last 20-some-odd years. And so the house that he wrote down as being his residence to run for the Senate in Georgia turns out is his wife's house. And it's not just like they bought it together and he gifted it to. No, it's her ex-husband's house. And she apparently got the house in a divorce from him. So it's her ex-husband's home, which is now her home. And that's the address he put down on the application, on the documents to run for senator, on the filing to run for, to declare himself a candidate for the United States Senate. Why are you all supporting liars and then calling me up and go, there is a swamp up there? That's because you keep voting for people that literally are frauds. You keep voting for people that scam the tax code. You keep voting for tax fraudsters, insurance fraudsters. I mean, we're not innocent here in Florida. Rick Scott was the CEO of HCA Columbia hospital chain, biggest hospital chain, I've ever seen. And he managed to pull off the biggest Medicare swindle, the biggest Medicare fraud in the history of Medicare. And he's our senator. He's the senator from Florida. I mean, I don't know how this happens. I don't know why this happens. I don't know why people keep voting for people like Ron Johnson, who sit there and lie to your freaking face. I don't know why people would watch or have anything to do with Steve Bannon when he ripped off the viewers for $1 million. Why would you root for Alex Jones? Alex Jones literally owes $500 million to the families of Sandy Hook and is erroneously, fraudulently transferring his money. It actually has a name in law. It's called fraudulent transfer. Sounds like exactly what it is. Fraudulent transfer to avoid paying court fines, to avoid paying awards that are adjudicated for you to pay in civil suits. He's literally doing it and telling his audience, I'm just going to declare bankruptcy is what I'm going to do. Like in full frontal view of you, telling you he's going to defraud the United States of America. I mean, honestly. So don't call me up all incensed about how there's corruption on both sides, because the corruption on the right is legion and legendary and swamp-like, and you keep voting for them over and over and over. Al Franken had a photograph coming back from a USO tour where he was entertaining the troops in far-flung Afghanistan with another female comedian who was asleep wearing a flak jacket, okay? And he mocked feeling her up and had to resign his office because the Democrats weren't having any of it. I thought that was ridiculous because he didn't touch her. It was a photo and it was funny. And then you just canceled him. I did stand-up comedy one night in San Francisco in a gay nightclub, and I got canceled by the Democratic Party, too, because they didn't like what I said. I mean, but the Republicans, man, oh, man, you could do anything to you, and you will still support them. That's a cult. That's a cult, and you just don't find that on the left. You just don't find that prevalent in Democratic politics. I'm sorry, you just don't. You look the wrong way at somebody in the Democratic Party, and oh my God, no, well, we're shunning you. We're shunning you. We're shaming you. We're going to go on Fox News early in the morning while you're sitting there putting on your makeup, and we're going to call for your head on a platter. And guess what? Your boss is going to give it to us because he's a liberal too. I mean, it's just so unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's unbearable, actually. But this is what goes on. So Herschel is out there talking a bunch of crap, okay? And now I guess Donald Trump knows he's going to lose. So Donald Trump isn't showing up for him. And little Lala Ingraham is shocked, I tell you. She's shocked that Donald Trump isn't putting his heft, his weight, behind Herschel.
Herschel, why is it that President Trump is not coming to have a rally in this last week before the final election day? And meanwhile, you got Obama campaigning with Warnock.
You know, President Trump has always been in my corner. He still is in my corner. And he's been doing other things for me. And everyone has been doing a lot of things for me. Tonight, we just got out of a fundraiser with Governor Kemp, with a lot of other people that was at the fundraiser. And, you know, President Trump is doing just as much for me. And I think right now the left is trying to highlight with President Obama coming down. But, you know, one of the things that they got to remember, President Obama is a celebrity. And that seemed to be where Raphael Warnock is getting his money from, celebrities. But he's not going to win this race. I told people before, he may outraise me in money, but I guarantee he won't get more votes than I'm going to get.
What? Wait, what? So Obama, a former president of the United States, is a celebrity, but Herschel Walker isn't. And Donald Trump, the reality TV star / former president, isn't a celebrity. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. They just sit there and they say this crap and you leave it on. You actually sit there in your lazy boy on your sofa and you leave this crap on. And then you wonder why there's a swampy future ahead. Why there's a cheating, lying, sack of crap future ahead for your party. Here we are in a lame duck session solving some of the biggest problems we have. Trying to prevent a rail strike because you don't want a railroad strike before Christmas in the United States, okay? So Congress is inserting itself and trying to give to these railroad workers the 7 paid vacation days that they need in order to agree to the contract with the giant railroad barons. The CSX and the Union Pacifics of the world won't give them 7 paid days of sick. Won't give them that. So Congress has now got to insert itself and try and get them that. But you're the party of the middle class. Yeah, right. You're the party of truth and the American way.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
911, what's your emergency?
America's healthcare system is broken, and people are dying.
Welcome to Code WACK, where we shine a light on America's callous healthcare system, how it hurts us, and what we can do about it. I'm your host, Brenda Gazar. This time on Code WACK. What do the results of the midterm elections mean for healthcare reform at the national level? Could they have an effect on the increasing corporatization of healthcare? To find out, we asked Michael Leidy, president of Healthy California Now.
I think the federal level is tough to gauge. I think we can say that the really big threats to Medicare and Social Security are off the table because the Republicans don't have both houses. So their negotiating positions to leverage the Biden administration is weakened. They were definitely going to go after Medicare, maybe even raising the eligibility age. Can you imagine being subject to private insurance until you're age 70 instead of 65? That was being discussed by the Republicans. So I think there is going to be a need politically to address healthcare inflation. Now, what that usually means when you're not doing single payer is restricting access to the services, and so trying to make changes on the delivery side or schemes like ACO REACH or privatized things like Medicare Advantage. We know in California, Code WACK has covered it, that Medicare for All single payer can save people, individuals, working families, seniors even, $5,000 to $9,000 a year. We know that the state of California can save $158 billion a year by 2030.
A full Code WACK story on ProgressiveVoices.com and on the PV app. Catch all our episodes by subscribing to Code WACK wherever you find your podcast. This podcast is powered by Heal California, a nonprofit that uplifts the voices of those fighting for healthcare reform around the country. Until next time, stay healthy.
Now, the top of the hour on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn presents the Green News Report.
Today, we established the first ever dedicated fund for loss and damage.
While we were out, rich nations finally agreed to pay climate damages to poor nations. A quarter of Americans are at risk of winter power blackouts. Plus,
everybody that uses tap water in Houston is being told to boil your water.
Entire city of Houston placed under boil water notice after power failure.
All of that hot water and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Yusuf Shah, the 11-year-old British kid with an IQ higher than Einstein, has to explain the fascination with Rubik's Cubes. Look, I can solve it in 3 seconds. Nobody cares, genius. Go to your room and solve global warming.
Yes, please do. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, we step away for a few days, and look what happens. A whole bunch of things all at once that we need you to cover on today's Green News Report.
Indeed. While we were out, the big UN climate summit in Egypt, COP27, reached a breakthrough agreement after 30 years of deadlock. Rich countries finally agreed to create a fund to compensate developing countries for loss and damage caused by man-made global warming, to recover from disasters and adapt to future impacts. It matters because developed nations got rich using fossil fuels, leaving poor countries who haven't benefited from those greenhouse gas emissions to grapple with costly disasters like worsening storms, droughts, and heat waves, and rising sea levels. The United States, the world's largest historical emitter, dropped its decades-long opposition after the new agreement ensured that rich nations won't be held legally liable for payments.
Well, good for us, I guess.
COP27 Executive Secretary Simon Style credited pressure by climate activists and non-governmental groups for the breakthrough.
Without the voices of individuals, whether they're activists, researchers, scientists, youth, or indigenous peoples, we would not have gotten this far. Your voices have a direct impact on how we find our way forward at the multilateral level.
So raising hell works, if you can do it for 30 years.
Yes, but thorny questions were postponed to next year, like the structure of the fund, where the money should go, how to hold countries accountable, and which countries should contribute, like, say, China, which is both a wealthy developing country and a top emitter. It was a mixed bag at COP27 after major oil producers thwarted attempts to strengthen emissions targets and blocked a provision calling for the phase-out of all fossil fuels. Here in the U.S., the Republican takeover of the House of Representatives in the 2022 election is likely to curtail U.S. climate action. GOP leaders have announced they're dismantling the House Climate Crisis Committee and have vowed to block the U.S. commitment to contribute to the Loss and Damage Fund and to chip away at President Biden's landmark climate law, the Inflation Reduction Act.
Sure, why not? There's nothing wrong with the climate. Everything is fine.
In Houston, officials on Monday issued a boil water notice for 2.3 million residents and closed schools on Monday and Tuesday after a power outage at one of the city's water purification plants caused a drop in water pressure. The cause of the power failure is as yet unexplained as we go to air, but the consequences rippled across the city for millions of residents and businesses. Large parts of the U.S. are at major risk of power outages this winter, according to North America's grid reliability watchdog. In their sobering assessment, the North American Electric Reliability Corporation warned that Texas, the Midwest, and New England are at high risk of outages in an extreme winter storm scenario that could curtail fossil fuel supply deliveries and knock unprepared power plants offline. The Biden administration just released another tranche of $13 billion in funds from the bipartisan infrastructure law to modernize the U.S. power grid for future resilience. Some good news. While we were out, the world's largest solar farm began delivering power in India. The world's largest offshore wind farm went online off the coast of Norway, and the largest battery storage system in Europe went online. All are set to be superseded by bigger clean energy facilities already in the development pipeline in coming years.
Nice.
And finally, Buffalo, New York is just digging out from a historic multi-day blizzard that was juiced by global warming. morning. Some areas received 7 feet of snow. But despite the snow, Buffalo is promoting itself as a climate refuge. The city has launched a marketing campaign to attract new residents with data from online real estate site Trulia that highlights Buffalo's mild summers, climate-resilient infrastructure, and status as one of the top 5 safest U.S. cities against climate impacts.
Until then, 6 feet of snow? Keep digging. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Don't forget you can download our reports anytime via Stitcher, TuneIn, Apple, Google, or Amazon Podcasts. Find, follow, and share us planet-wide on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Green News Report. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Please help Progressive Voices support the Green News Report by stopping by bradblog.com/donate.
Mary had a little man.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America. From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Help is on the way. Knock, knock. Who's there? It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Bipartisanship is such a rarity these days that when there is some, it's a big deal. And Democratic and Republican leaders agree that a rail strike would be devastating to the U.S. economy, and that's why they are scrambling to prevent one. President Biden sat down with the top 4 congressional leaders for the first time since the midterm elections. He told them it was not an easy call, but he thinks they have to halt collective bargaining to protect the economy. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said the House would vote today to adopt a tentative agreement that the administration brokered back in September. 4 unions have voted against it. The contract includes a 24% raise over 5 years, but workers want paid sick leave, which progressives support. Senator Bernie Sanders tweeted that he intends to block the bill, saying of the paid sick leave, quote, "Please don't tell me that the rail industry can't afford it." Rail companies spent $25.5 billion on stock buybacks and dividends this year.
Right.
If rail workers walk off the job, it could mean even more financial pain for the average American already dealing with high inflation. It could wreak havoc on the supply chain and delay getting goods to store shelves, which might lead to prices going up on just about everything right before Christmas. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said that he is working to get enough votes to pass the legislation. He's not sure if he's there yet. If Congress does not intervene, the strike could start next Friday.
So that report left out so much information that you need to have so that you really understand what is being proposed by Congress. So there is a law in this country that goes way back to 1926. It's the Railway Labor Act, and it allows for Congress to intervene in the case of rail strikes. Okay, it allows Congress to insert itself. Now, Congress can do a few things. They could modify the agreement so that it's acceptable to both sides, or they can force the agreement down the throats of whoever it is that doesn't want the agreement, whether it's business or workers. It's usually workers that are getting stiffed at that table. And so the House of Representatives, which is still in Democratic hands, passed 2 bills this morning, 2. One that would, accept the contract as is without this. The workers only asked for four paid sick days. That's all they asked for. 4 paid sick days. And CSX and Union Pacific and all these giant rail companies that BNSF made $6 billion in profits last year. That was 16% more than they made the year prior. Okay? So they have like record profits. I'm not talking about revenue. I'm talking about profits. Okay? And what did they spend their money on? Did they spend their money on their workers? Did they give them 4 lousy sick days paid? No. 4 lousy sick days paid would cost $688 million per year. Okay? They made $6 billion in profit. They spent $4.5 billion buying back their own stock, which used to be illegal because it kept the number of shares that were available to the general public for purchase way down. And you used to not be able to, jack up your prices by buying your own stock. Well, you can do that now. You can do that now. Now, let me just show you something. BNSF, the parent company of that rail freight carrier, is part of the Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, okay? And that's the parent company. And they spent $32 billion since last year buying back their own stock, okay? That was declared a form of market manipulation until 1982, okay? And now you can do it. Anyway, last week, Warren Buffett added $1.38 billion to his net worth in a single day. In a single day. That is twice as much money in a single day he made. That is twice as much money as it would cost to fund 15 paid sick days per year. Twice as much he took in profit. Not that he's a bad person. I'm just saying that is what stock manipulation can actually allow for. But they don't want to give 4 paid sick days. Well, so the House passed 2 bills. One of the bills was just the agreement without the sick days. A second bill that they passed today had 7 sick days in it, 7 paid sick days in it. Now it goes to the Senate. Both those bills are going to go over to the Senate, and the Senate is going to have to decide which of these bills or both of these bills or what they want to do about these bills. Do they want to pass the one that doesn't have the 7 sick days in it, or do they want to pass the one that does? Or do they want to do nothing and allow for a rail strike? What's interesting is that Bernie Sanders, obviously, and Elizabeth Warren don't want to pass the bill without the sick days, without the paid sick leave. They think it's just barbaric because, in the 22 high developed nations, out of the 22 highly developed nations, the United States is the only one that does not require employers to provide paid sick leave to its workers. I mean, this is American exceptionalism at its worst. Yes. It's unbelievable. Spain, 16 days of paid sick leave. Belgium, a month of paid sick leave. The UK, 28 weeks of sick leave paid. Now, I told you yesterday, we had this piece of legislation called the Healthy Families Act. And if we would have passed the Healthy Families Act, there would have been a law that says that if you're a business and you have more than 15 full-time employees, you have to provide 7 paid sick days to your employees. I don't think that's so terrible. But anyway, that thing never passed. And so this is why you have to negotiate for it in collective bargaining. Well, the Chamber of Commerce is the exact amalgamation of corporate interests that are lobbying Congress to drop it. Get rid of the paid sick days. And all we're talking about is something they negotiated for at the table in order to not have a rail strike at Christmas time. And they asked for 4 days. And the corporation said, no. So they removed it. So, listen, so now this is where we are now. I will just share with you that Bernie Sanders is going to filibuster the bill that doesn't have the paid sick leave.
What powers does the Senate have, Congress have, in terms of this deal? Could you just put paid sick leave into the deal?
Yes.
Can you mandate paid sick leave as a matter of just a congressional law?
Yes. In this instance, as a result of long-standing legislation, Congress has the power to come up with an agreement in order to protect the American economy. The president is right. The economy would be hurt by a strike. I don't know that anybody wants to see a strike. But here is the bottom line. The bottom line is that the American people and workers throughout this country are profoundly disgusted by the kind of corporate greed that we are seeing. Everybody knows billionaires are getting richer, working people are struggling, corporate profits are at an all-time high, and they're raising prices to make goods unaffordable for ordinary Americans. That's the overall reality. And what you're seeing in the rail industry is that whole phenomena in spades. Chris, in the last 3 quarters of this year alone, the railroad industry made $21 billion in profits, provided $25 billion in stock buybacks and dividends, and they are paying their CEOs, in some cases, $14 million a year, $10 million a year, $20 million a year, whatever it may be. Meanwhile, for workers on the railroads, they have zero, underlined zero, guaranteed sick leave. In other words, somebody comes down with COVID tomorrow. They're going to get penalized because they don't come into work.
I mean, that is just that is so twisted. That is just like so indentured servitude. There is no other highly developed country that does this to employees.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
Happy holidays, everybody. You know what would make a freaking great gift? A stinking podcast. A stinking Randi Rhodes podcast. You can gift them now by just visiting us at RandiRhodes.com. Click on merch and buy a stinking podcast. Gift it. It's free of corporate information. There are no ads of any kind. It's pure podcast pleasure. Commercial free and on demand when you want it, where you want it, how you want it. So visit us at RandiRhodes.com and buy a stinking podcast.
Breaking news. After years of failed Republican efforts to uncover any proof of widespread voter fraud by Democrats, Republican Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida has found not 1 but 20 ineligible people casting ballots. Like Donald Trump and a gaggle of other GOP governors, DeSantis has used the phony bugaboo of an illegal voting epidemic as a political ploy to keep the true believers believing. They spend millions of taxpayer dollars on partisan wild goose chases, and DeSantis even created a new police bureaucracy, the Office of Election Crimes, to snoop on voters. It was all just silly political nastiness, but then, Ron's dragnet scooped up 20 of the diabolical culprits. Vindication. Who were they? All are former convicts who had previously been stripped of their right to vote, but each one unwittingly cast ballots in 2020, wrongly believing that their rights had been restored after serving their time. Who cares what they thought, bellowed the bullish governor. He trashed them as election criminals, ignoring their constitutional right to be presumed innocent unless convicted by a jury. Well, gosh, why did all 20 think they could vote? Because each one had properly submitted voter registration applications that went to DeSantis' state agency responsible for determining eligibility. But oops, Ron's own administration boo-booed, erroneously authorizing all 20 to get official voter ID cards. In short, the governor himself had effectively told them they could vote. Then he had them arrested and publicly condemned for doing so. This is Jim Hightower saying, now running for president, DeSantis says God has chosen him to rule because he's a fighter. But hello, he fights people rather than for them. He's a bully, and there's nothing godly about that. Nothing presidential either.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1930. That was the day the world lost the miner's angel, Mother Jones. She had crossed the country many times over, been involved in practically every strike that built the labor movement, stood with miners and steelworkers, and milled children everywhere. Mother Jones had asked to be buried with the Verdun miners killed in the massacre of 1898 at Union Miners Cemetery in Mount Olive, Illinois. Dozens of labor leaders, including AFL President William Green, attended her funeral in Maryland, where she had been living. Then AFL representatives, several Illinois miners, and others boarded the Baltimore and Ohio train to accompany her body to Mount Olive. Historian David Featherling describes the scene as her body arrived. A band played Nearer My God to Thee as onlookers bowed their heads and wept. Survivors of the Verdun riot bore the casket to the Odd Fellows Hall, where it lay in state. The town of 3,500, with its strong and violent heritage, was thronged by thousands of coal diggers. At least 15,000 turned out for the funeral. Broadcast on WCFL, the Chicago Federation of Labor's radio station, the labor priest, Reverend John McGuire, gave the memorial address and officiated at the funeral in Mount Olive's Roman Catholic Church of the Ascension. He asked what weapons she had to fight the fight against oppression of working men. Only the
I watched it on TV.
All things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
There's a Dear Colleague letter out from Speaker Pelosi about the votes tomorrow, and they're saying there will be two votes. A vote on the deal, a vote on 7 days paid sick leave. So then I guess the question becomes, it comes to the Senate. I assume Majority Leader Chuck Schumer will probably have two votes. Can you get 10 Republicans? You got Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, basically all but singing the Internationale tongue in cheek, because they're doing it in a kind of trolling fashion. I thought you would appreciate that, Senator. Yes. But can you get 10 votes from them on this?
Well, who knows? John Cornyn, who's, I guess, the deputy whip or the whip of the Republican Party, said in their caucus today that there was, I think the wording, significant support for the Sanders proposal. So I hope that we can. Look, you have a number of Republicans who claim to be supporters of the working class. Well, if you are a supporter of the working class, how are you going to vote against the proposal which provides guaranteed paid sick leave to workers who have none right now? So I am cautiously optimistic that we can get this done.
It does seem like a kind of call your bluff moment, because there has been, you hear all this talk from Republicans, we're the blue collar party now, and right. Liberals in the coast, you don't understand people that work real jobs like machinists and conductors, and so this seems like a put your money where your mouth is moment.
That's right. Put up or shut up. If you can't vote for this, to give workers today who really have hard jobs, dangerous jobs, if you can't guarantee them paid sick leave, don't tell anybody that you stand with working families.
Seriously. And these are some of the most profitable corporations on the planet. These are, the robber baron industries. These are the actual railroad industry titans that are refusing to give workers, all they ask for is 4 paid sick days a year. 4 paid sick days. And they said, no. And on $21 billion worth of profits, they spent $25 billion buying back their own stock, not taking care of their workers. In fact, they've laid off a third of the workers that keep the railroads running. And I'm not just talking about passenger. I'm talking about freight for the most part. Now, passenger rail usually runs on freight rail lines. So freight is like king here. And we're talking about freight companies that are literally making billions of dollars a year and buying back their own stock instead of taking care of their workers who have to be on call. I don't know if you know this. They have to be on call 90% of the time, including throughout the night. They have to travel for their jobs, okay? Their jobs aren't, like drive to the office. No, their jobs are to follow the trains, okay? They have to go with the trains. They're not at home. Okay, and so, they penalize the workers for taking any time off, whether they're fatigued, whether their wives are having a baby, whether there's a family emergency, whether they have COVID and they're ill. It doesn't. But they have reduced the number of workers in their companies by about a third, but the amount of work has remained the same. Sound familiar? A third less workers, but the amount of production stays the same. You need to produce and make up for those 1/3 that we laid off because we wanted bigger profits. We wanted more profit. And all they came to them with, the only request that the workers asked for was 4 lousy paid sick days. And the Republican Party is sitting there telling you, I swear, Josh Hawley said, well, I'm not going to vote, to insert the Senate into what is obviously a labor issue that the corporations have to come and sit at the table with the working man. So I don't think there's a role for the Senate to play. We'll see if that's true, because obviously the exact agreement with the addition of the sick days that he's for is coming before him. We'll see if Josh Hawley is a yes. Rubio said the same damn thing. Well, I don't want to, take away, from the workers the ability to negotiate for their sick days by inserting the Senate into their business. I want them to go back to the table and get their sick days. Well, the sick days are actually being put into the agreement right now, and we need those Republicans to vote for it. We'll see. I can't imagine that they're all pro worker now, when they were always pro corporate. They were always pro insurance carrier, not patient. They were always pro big pharma, not people who use insulin. They've always been for big business and not for the workers. I mean, free markets and all that, and no regulation and no intervention and nothing, and anti-union. Now all of a sudden they're super pro union. So there are two bills, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in the Senate. But there needs to be a vote real soon. You know why? Because the railways are so huge, and it affects so much commerce. Why? Well, it's like they'll give you this number, $2 billion a day. Well, how could it be $2 billion a day? Well, it's chemicals, mostly chlorine, that goes to water treatment plants, right? And most water treatment plants have about a week's supply of chlorine on hand, right? Because it's difficult to keep it sitting there. It's difficult to source it. Cars come on rail. I think 75% of all new vehicles, 75% of all new vehicles start their journey from the factory on the railroad. The railroads deliver approximately 2,000 carloads of vehicles per day. And then there's food. 30% of all packaged food is moved by rail in the United States, especially canned goods. Why? Because they're heavy. That's why. Like soup. Soup weighs a ton. And so it's put on the rail. Beer. Yes, everybody. Now I'm talking your language. Beer. There would be a beer shortage if we had a rail strike. Cereal, peanut butter, beer, soup, dense, heavy packaged items, okay? So, retail, I will say most of the stuff that's for sale for Christmas is already where it needs to be, so you could access it for Christmas. But then, you got your shippers over here like FedEx and UPS, and they use the rail. And they take 2,000 packages in each car, in each railway car. So it's not that you wouldn't be able to, see the items. It would be that you wouldn't be able to order them. They wouldn't be able to get to you. So it's not exactly a canceling Christmas thing, but you will see a generalized disruption of really everything, because almost everything moves by rail. And what are these railroad workers asking for? 4 paid sick days. And that is a bridge too far for the Chamber of Commerce, for the lobbyists who represent these giant rail profiteers. Now, we're all being gouged. Everyone in this audience has been gouged. Everyone knows that we're being gouged. You know what really got to me of all the things for the Thanksgiving dinner? Wasn't paying $2.59 a pound for turkey, because I understood there was an avian flu outbreak that killed a whole bunch of turkeys. Same thing's going on with chickens now. No, the thing that killed me was the foil, the easy foil pan, the big roaster. You know how much that was? A freaking disposable foil pan was $8. Why? Gouging. Yeah.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
This is Stephanie Miller, and here's what you missed. Chris, who said Trump handed white supremacists and white power activists a major propaganda coup?
The Bugaloos.
No. I can't tell who it is. Oh, Washington Post, Greg
You
Sargent.
didn't even know.
I don't know. Doesn't matter. The white power group saw January 6th as a stunning act of propaganda. We saw upticks in recruitment drives, and the lack of condemnation of those events by the mainstream Republican Party really showed these activists there's plenty more space for them in our political process. Yep, that's what it does. Normalizes them, mainstreams them. Republicans at every turn vote to go, how can we have less days of early voting, less hours, take away more? They just don't want people to vote, because when there is turnout, Democrats win.
Well, and then Kari Lake was very upset that Republicans had to wait in line.
Oh, well, white people, that's different, for God's sake.
So
white people in the dry heat, that's not.
It's funny because, careful what you wish for, kids. It will bounce back on you.
Yes. Yeah. People should not have to wait in
No,
lines.
nobody should.
Yeah. But anyway, the fact that, they are, and in the numbers in Georgia is really, I think, great news. But anyway, also clearly Raphael Warnock listens to the Stephanie Miller Show ever since he met me out here at a fundraiser, because their latest commercial is basically What the Hell, Herschel.
It is.
Am I right?
Okay.
Yeah, we have that. Here we go.
Okay.
Yes.
You ever watch a stupid movie late at night hoping it's going to get better, don't get better, but you keep watching it anyway? Because the other night I was watching this movie.
What the hell is he talking about?
Is he serious? Is he for real?
But I'm going to tell you something that I found out. A werewolf can kill a vampire. Did you know that?
What is he talking about?
I never knew that, so I didn't want to be a vampire anymore. I want to be a werewolf.
Oh, my gosh.
He's talking about vampires and werewolves right now.
Y'all serious about this, right?
You're welcome. Hear all this and more on the next Stephanie Miller Show.
I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
That's the thing that people keep pushing back on. They don't want to go into a whole nother storm of hate.
I actually saw people trying to leave, and people leaving early even before he was done. He's still speaking now.
We are a nation in decline. We are a failing nation. We call it the China virus. Some people call it other things.
He started with the China virus. He started with, poking names at DeSantis. We've heard that, and people are tired of it.
Angela. Remember Angela? Do you remember Angela? Nobody's remembering her now.
I'm sure you're very supportive of your father-in-law, but those of us on the outside looking at it, it didn't seem that he got the old magic. You know what I mean?
We built the wall. We completed the wall. In the caravans, I love the name. I came up with it. I love the name. The caravans. A word that I refuse to say. Nuclear. I say, why didn't you raid Bush's place? Why didn't you raid Clinton?
They actually started preventing people from leaving.
I'm not going to use the term fake news media.
The New York Post said at the bottom of the page, Florida man makes announcement.
I had to fold it over so you could see it. It says, Florida man makes announcement, and then perhaps worst of all, see page 26.
Ivanka Trump yesterday says she's bowing out of politics just after her father's announcement.
Right. Look at how time flies. Look how fast it's all going.
Whether you're listening to Leslie Marshall each Tuesday through Friday or Brad Bannon each Monday, you can hear them from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern on the Progressive Voices Network. Here's a sample of what you'll hear.
Sean O'Brien. Mr. O'Brien is now General President of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. What do you, now that you're President, General President of the Teamsters, what do you hope to accomplish?
Don't give up. Don't give up. What's true?
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. All right, everybody, it is the Free Speech TV Winter Pledge Drive, and we are asking if you can please give a donation to support independent TV, support independent news. Today would be a great day to do it because they will match whatever you do, dollar for dollar, up to $50,000. So give us a call at 877-378-8669 and talk to some wonderful person in Denver, Colorado who'd be happy to help you make your donation, or visit us at freespeech.org and click on the donate button, or text to 44321, 44321, the letters FSTV, and we will send you a secure link so that you can make your donation. And thank you very much for supporting independent media in the way that you have for the last 25 years. We're very, very grateful to you. So thank you. Vincent in Nevada.
Yeah, hi, Randy.
Hi.
Love you a ton. Love your show.
Thank you.
Calling about the rant that you did at the turn of the hour about Rick Johnson and Rick Scott and Ron Johnson. And I agree with you 100%. But the reason for all these things, like the why do they vote for these people, what's going on, how does this happen, it all boils down to the same thing, because I'm a firm believer in Occam's razor. And it's what started in the early 70s, the dumbing down of America. It's the root source of all the problems. Because as Thomas Jefferson said, democracy requires, in his words, a highly educated populace, which is why he created the University of Virginia. And but the oligarchs realized that democracy does not work for them. So they just wanted to dumb down the country.
Yeah, and that is what all this book banning is about, and no teaching of history, and they'll call it something to make you afraid of history, or they'll say it makes people feel bad to learn of our history, or and they'll make school about an argument about bathrooms instead of about curriculum. They'll make teachers quit in droves because they won't pay them. It's a race to the bottom in this country. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's how we got.
Well, it's
Ronald
part of how we
Reagan.
got here. But the reason why it's so rank right now is because you have a cult also. You also have, the best snake oil salesman that has come down the pike in forever, selling the dumbing down, saying it's good to be dumb, and that people that aren't dumb, people that read a newspaper, or people that understand civics, or people that want history taught to they're elitists, right? They tag everyone with something that sounds derogatory so that they can perpetuate the idiocy, and make you loyal to it.
Right. But but in order to follow what these people are saying, and to become, a mindless follower, it's because you've been dumbed down. Yeah.
And also because you're being entertained by idiots. Okay, you really are. You're enjoying it. You
have to be an idiot to be entertained by that.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily, but the idea that conspiracy theorists are making a fortune in this country isn't because America's stupid. It's because they're entertained by the conspiracy theory. They like going down the rabbit hole. It's fun. It feels fun. And, the people that actually ingest it and say, oh, yeah, there's a ring of pedophiles that are drinking adrenochrome and that, RFK is still alive or whatever, the theory is. Yes, those are idiots. But the other people that are just, surrounding them and countenancing, they're just having the best time. They're just having fun.
Yeah, that I don't understand. I mean, it still boggles my mind.
Because they write off, just like that, the first caller of the day said to me, I really like your show. I find it entertaining. And I disagree with you about everything except for gun safety. He said he agreed with me on gun safety. But his premise was there are crooks on both sides. So they're taught that if they come up against reality, or if they come up against somebody like me, that the way that they solve the problem of cognitive dissonance, meaning they know what the facts are, but they just, are having more fun ignoring them, is they say, well, it happens on both sides, But there's no comparison on the left. Right.
And if you had a good mind and were able to think clearly and
I don't know that he didn't have a good mind or couldn't think clearly. I just know that he told me who he was. And he said that what he likes about this show is it's entertaining. It feels good. It's fun to him. Okay? But right. So this is the most paramount thing in news or broadcasting or anything, is you need to entertain your audience. And if you can't do that, then there's no chance at education, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it has nothing to do with being of sound mind or highly... Listen, freaking Stuart Rhodes he went to Yale, for God's sake, and he graduated Yale Law School, okay? That is not, emotional intelligence or the ability to, not obsess over, whatever he obsesses about, his anti-government crap, or work for Ron Paul and think Ron Paul is some sort of soothsayer, some sort of truth teller. It has nothing to do with intelligence. Nothing. It has to do with who's entertaining who the best. And the reason why Donald Trump became president is because Donald Trump is an entertainer. He's literally a reality TV star. And he was able to put on a great show for them. And they thought, well, since it happens on both sides, I might as well go with the side that's entertaining me. That's what they think. Yeah. And that's how it happened. So Occam's razor being the simplest explanation is usually the best. It's not the only explanation. Yeah. So I appreciate what you're saying about the dumbing down. I mean, it's totally, built in. It's totally baked into the American experience, is that we want to turn out really dumb people. Because who are you going to get to work for $7 an hour?
Vincent brings up a kind of interesting philosophical question, though. What came first, the idiot viewer or Fox News? Were the idiot viewers always around and they gravitated to Fox?
No.
Or did Fox create this audience?
There's a real answer to that question, and it's not a chicken or the egg thing. It is when news got folded into programming. News used to be a loss leader for every network, meaning it wasn't expected to, nor did it ever make a profit. It was news. It was fact-based, it was news, and you had anchors that you trusted. Credibility was the coin of the realm. As soon as they decided that news, why shouldn't news make a profit? Everything else on the network has to make a profit or it gets canceled. Why are we allowing news for the last 50 years to not make a profit? And they decided that news would become a profit center. And this is what we got. And everybody that has done any kind of politics or news in my lifetime, okay, my adult broadcast career, was always told the same thing at hiring. The reason you're here is because you're entertaining. The reason you're here is because you're entertaining. If you can't entertain this audience, you got nothing for us. We won't keep you. We don't want you. The reason we're talking to you, Randy, is because you're funny or you're fun or you're entertaining or you're a clown. You amuse me. Yeah. When I'm a clown to you, I amuse you? Yes. I like the way you tell a story, okay? Even Miss Maddow starts her first 20 minutes with some story.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
Vice President Mike Pence calls his wife Karen mother, and sometimes mother. Mother does not allow father to attend events with alcohol without her being present. Mother does not allow father to have dinner with another woman. In fact, mother does not allow father to be alone in a room with another woman. Mother is an art teacher at Emmanuel Christian School, which requires employees to affirm in writing that they will not engage in homosexual sexual acts or have a transgender identity. Father's epic homophobia made him sign into law in Indiana the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which encouraged and condoned the aggressive discrimination of gays and lesbians. Around the White House, mother is known as the bulldog and father as the pleaser. Father was placed in charge of the coronavirus response on February 26th. The 5 months that followed, more than 170,000 Americans have died. Mother and father both oppose gay marriage. In interviews, father obsessively praises Trump's broad shoulders, and cameras have repeatedly caught him looking at Trump like Cinderella. Some senators call Pence Trump's fourth wife. An official from the Reagan administration said, "I'd like my wife to look at me just for one day the way Mike Pence looks at President Trump every day they're together." Father wrote about how disgusted he was with the Republican Party because they allowed HIV-positive people to speak at the 1996 convention. Father supported the use of federal funding to treat people, quote, seeking to change their sexual behavior, unquote, otherwise known as gay conversion therapy. Father praises himself as an uber Christian, but was caught stealing campaign donations for his first congressional race and used the money to pay his mortgage, credit card bills, and even fees for golf tournaments. Meet Mike and Karen, father and mother. They're just weird AF.
A boy's best friend is his mother.
Nobody has ever done what we've done in the last 4 years.
Their entire economic plan, tax cuts for the rich and corporations.
And record-breaking unemployment.
The worst jobs report on record.
Trump is the only modern president to leave office with fewer jobs than when he took office.
The Trump administration formally asking the Supreme Court to overturn the Affordable Care Act. This could leave up to 23 million Americans without coverage.
I hope that they end. It'll be so good if they end. You also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no?
There has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form. And if I win, we will treat those people from January 6th fairly. And if it requires pardons, we will give them pardons.
It is midnight in Washington. The lights are finally going out in the Capitol after a long day in the impeachment trial of Donald J. Trump. You can't trust this president to do the right thing, not for 1 minute, not for one election, not for the sake of our country. You just can't.
Bing, bing, bong, bong.
He will not change, and you know it. History will not be kind to Donald Trump. I think we all know that. Not because it will be written by never-Trumpers, but because whenever we have departed from the values of our nation, we have come to regret it, and that regret is written all over the pages of our history. If you find that the House has proved its case and still vote to acquit, your name will be tied to his with a cord of steel and for all of history. He has betrayed our national security. He has compromised our elections, and he will do so again. You will not change him. You cannot constrain him. Truth matters little to him. What's right matters even less, and decency matters not at all. We have proven Donald Trump guilty. Now do impartial justice and convict him.
Excited to see members of Congress incite violence against law enforcement, enjoy armed insurrections, and the big lie? If so, thank a MAGA Republican. If you think election results should only count when Republicans win, thank a MAGA Republican today. The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Fatality. This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Here, let's have a look at a focus group, okay, that looks at Georgia's offerings this particular election cycle.
You ever watch a stupid movie late at night hoping it's going to get better, don't get better, but you keep watching it anyway? Because the other night I was watching this movie. Called Freak Night, or some type of night, but it was about vampires. I don't know if you know vampires are cool people.
What the hell is he talking about?
Is he serious? Is he for real?
But I'm going to tell you something that I found out. A werewolf can kill a vampire. Did you know that?
What is he talking about?
I never knew that, so I didn't want to be a vampire anymore. I want to be a werewolf.
Oh my gosh.
He's talking about vampires and werewolves right now.
Y'all serious about this, right?
So I've been telling this little story about this bull out in the field.
What on
cows.
earth?
And 3 of them are pregnant.
There's no substance. There's nothing.
So you know you got something going on.
It makes me want to laugh, and then it makes me think we're in trouble.
But all he cared about is kept his nose against the fence, looking at 3 other cows that then belonged to him. Now all he had to do is eat grass.
This video is ridiculous. That's 35 seconds of my life I'll never get back.
Why would I want someone like that leading the state of Georgia?
Our good air decided to float over to China, bad air.
Unbelievable.
So when China gets our good air, their bad air gotta move.
It's all the same air.
Not only does it make no sense, I don't even understand what he thinks he's saying.
So it moves over to our good air space. And now we gotta clean that back up.
I sit and watch these on Twitter, and I'm like, what the heck is this guy talking about? Like, literally, what is he talking about?
He's completely unqualified for this really, really serious job.
No one's watching this and being like, oh man, that guy's got it together.
And sometimes, like, I read through the comments because I'm like, is anybody actually understanding, or are we just sitting here wasting time?
It is embarrassing. Let's call it what it is. It is embarrassing.
They just care about getting a yes man, somebody that had just punched the button.
I think it's a risk to me and millions of Georgians to put this man in a position of power.
Let's call it what it is. This is embarrassing as hell.
At all. I mean, well, you know.
People are not as dumb as you think they are. They look at him, they look at this mess of a man, and they reject him. And that is why voting in Georgia is breaking all kinds of records right now. All kinds of records, daily records, yearly records, presidential year records, off-year records, midterm records. You're talking about a runoff election in a former Confederate state that is breaking all the records because people are not going to be embarrassed by Herschel Walker.
See, but according to the numbers of the midterms, there are a equal amount of Georgia voters who will sit and instead of give us that reaction, they will defend it, contort themselves.
There's
do all
not
sorts
an equal amount.
I mean, darn near, according to the numbers anyway.
No, not even close. Not even close. 400,000 people skipped the race. They voted for Kemp as governor, but they did not vote for Herschel Walker. They either skipped the race and did not vote, or they voted for Warnock, which was hard for them because they went to vote Republican. They voted for Brian Kemp for governor. They showed up for him, and that is why Herschel Walker didn't get nearly the same number of votes that Brian Kemp did, even though they're both Republican. People are not that stupid. They're just not. There are stupid people who vote. That's a problem. Okay, but it is America. It is America, and there are no literacy tests, and there are no civics tests, and there are no counting of bubbles or math, acumen required to vote. Everybody who is a citizen can vote. That is America. But when you look at the numbers, they don't add up. Kemp won. Walker didn't. He actually got fewer votes than not just Kemp, but he got fewer votes than Warnock. See? So people are not that dumb, okay? They're not. And yes, there is an attempt to dumb down the generation that's coming up and dumb down the one before that, with not teaching history or banning books or saying this or that is too painful, and America can't possibly hold these feelings inside. If you tell them that this country actually started with a genocide, it's too much for them. That's not true. That's just not true. So when you look at a focus group of Georgians, which is what that was, looking at Herschel Walker's word salad, his garbagey, experience as a senatorial candidate, and his attempt at stumping, people know he's a liar. Okay. And some people will forgive him for being a liar. Some people went as far as forgiving him for paying for an abortion for two different women and then asking one of the women whose abortion he paid for to have a second abortion, which she refused to do. And this is how he has a 10-year-old. Okay. And some people said, well, he's been washed in the blood of Jesus now. And I swear to God, and he has been forgiven by the Lord. So who am I to not forgive him? That I've heard. But when you show them this madness that is Herschel Walker's brain, they're like, what? My favorite comment was this woman who said, I don't know what he's talking about, but I just wonder, does he have any idea?
I related particularly to the gentleman that said we're in trouble.
I related to the woman that said, I don't even know if he knows what he's trying to say. All right, Frida in Arkansas.
Hi.
Hey.
I have an awful lot to say, but I will try to keep it short because I watched you and Tom Hartman and everybody on free speech. That's all I watch.
Oh.
And I am terrified that I'm going to lose you because these monsters that are in control of all these lies and everything that has developed since Trump are gonna find a way to get rid of free speech TV. And I'm calling to ask you if you have any knowledge of any way other than, I mean, I just sent in $200.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to continue that.
Oh.
And because, I mean, I'm frantic. You are all I watch. You are the only place I can get truth, as well as people who are obviously with it. I have been through this system of education, and it is dumbing down people. I have 3 degrees and a master's degree. I've been in schools teaching. I've also been a counselor in schools. I know about schools and the children there now, and we are in a dangerous place.
Well, that's
and I don't have to
sad.
tell you that.
I mean, well, listen, I applaud you for educating yourself. I'm a high school dropout, just so you know. Okay, I don't have a degree in anything. Okay, nothing. And I think I'm very representative of, the American experience, right? My parents weren't rich. They didn't have my father told me girls don't go to college. They marry well. And, your sister is very pretty and she's not very smart. She'll marry well. You're not very pretty and you're way too smart. You better get a career. Okay, so that's how I ended up having a career instead. Okay,
yeah,
but that's the kind of crap that you grow up with, in my day, and it couldn't possibly be any worse than that. So here are the Democrats trying to say, let's start school earlier. Let's start when they're 3. Let's do universal pre-K. This is something that Democrats want to do so that we can have an educated electorate, so that we can have a participatory democracy. Now there isn't the other side, and the other side is no, tell your daughter that she's not very pretty and she's too smart and so she needs to go to work. Do you know what I'm saying? So I don't think it has anything to do with education. I really don't. I think it has a lot.
Boy, I do. I worked with Head Start for 5 years.
Yeah.
Back when they started it. And
good idea, bad idea? Frida?
Yeah, I'm here. I just can't hear you. I just heard you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was asking you if Head Start was a good idea or a bad idea.
It was a great idea.
It was a great idea, right. And so, there is a group of people in this country called Democrats that would like to start kids even earlier. We would like to start, kids are like a sponge for information, for language when they're, 3 and 4. You see 3 and 4-year-olds speaking multiple languages. Do you know what I mean? Why wouldn't we do it? Why wouldn't we do it? Because there is one party that is all about keeping Americans really desperate and dumb so that they will work for poor pay and demand no benefits and demand nothing. I get that.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
911, what's your emergency?
America's healthcare system is broken and people are dying.
Welcome to Code WACK, where we shine a light on America's callous healthcare system, how it hurts us, and what we can do about it. I'm your host, Brenda Gazar. This time on Code WACK. What do the results of the midterm elections mean for healthcare reform at the national level? Could they have an effect on the increasing corporatization of healthcare? To find out, we asked Michael Leidy, president of Healthy California Now.
I think the federal level is tough to gauge. I think we can say that the really big threats to Medicare and Social Security are off the table, because the Republicans don't have both houses. So their negotiating positions to leverage the Biden administration is weakened. They were definitely going to go after Medicare, maybe even raising the eligibility age. Can you imagine being subject to private insurance until you're age 70 instead of 65? That was being discussed by the Republicans. So I think there is going to be a need politically to address healthcare inflation. Now, what that usually means when you're not doing single payer is restricting access to the services, and so trying to make changes on the delivery side or schemes like ACO REACH or privatized things like Medicare Advantage. We know in California, Code WAC has covered it, that Medicare for All, single payer, can save people, individuals, working families, seniors even, $5,000 to $9,000 a year. We know that the state of California can save $158 billion a year by 2030.
A full Code WAC story on ProgressiveVoices.com and on the PV app. Catch all our episodes by subscribing to Code WAC wherever you find your podcast. This podcast is powered by Heal California, a nonprofit that uplifts the voices of those fighting for healthcare reform around the country. Until next time, stay healthy.
Now, the top of the hour on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn presents the Green News Report.
Today, we established the first ever dedicated fund for loss and damage.
While we were out, rich nations finally agreed to pay climate damages to poor nations. A quarter of Americans are at risk of winter power blackouts. Plus,
everybody that uses tap water in Houston is being told to boil your water.
Entire city of Houston placed under boil water notice after power failure.
All of that hot water and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Yousaf Shah, the 11-year-old British